So I do want to start off with something, where we are in the world of COVID, because if you listen to the World Health Organization, if you listen to country-specific representatives, they're all saying the same thing. They're saying, look, we've got a handle on things, kind of, sort of, but we are not out of the woods. And there's this fatigue. We've got the COVID fatigue now, where people are tired of wearing masks. They're not wearing them indoors for sure, a lot of people. And anywhere you look, the numbers are starting to creep up. And this is worrisome. I find this really, really worrisome that somehow in people's minds, they've just sort of said, we don't need it. And the follow-up with that, and because I'd love to get your thoughts on the masking stuff, is I was reading an article from Canada, and the folks over there, Dr. Isaac Bogosh, which I love this guy. I hope I can get an interview with Dr. Isaac Bogosh. He's kind of like been the voice of COVID for me. And he's in Toronto, just a great guy. And he's like no nonsense. He's like yourself. He just cuts right through all of the nonsense, and this is the way it is. But the big issue that everyone's talking about is flu. Colds and flu in the summer are not very common in Canada. The numbers are on the rise because suddenly people aren't wearing masks. Yes. People are sneezing, they're coughing, they're passing on all the stuff that we weren't getting because we had an extra filter. And I'm thinking, keep the masks on. Just keep them on. People aren't doing it.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic, isn't it, James, for sure?
I don't know why it's controversial. Wear your mask when you're inside around people. I don't know what the controversy is. What do you think is controversial?
I think it's controversial. I think because, for sure, the masks help reduce the spread of infection to a degree. And again, that is even controversial as to how much it helps prevent the spread. However, I also am a big believer in nonverbal communication.
Oh, yeah.
So
you like to hug is what you're saying.
You know I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger. I believe in this physical contact.
Yeah.
And from a medical perspective, a purely clinical medical perspective, of course, wear masks, wear PPE, personal protective equipment. That's undoubtable. And I think in many ways it should stay within the healthcare setting forever, and it probably will now. But when I'm with patients and I'm having maybe more difficult conversations with them, the mask is a barrier and it prevents full empathy being shown. I don't know why my mouth, is showing empathy rather than my eyes, but, it does prevent physical, what's the word I'm looking for? It prevents communication. There's a lot of research, I think, at the moment going into how children are learning communication during the COVID times, especially those that are very, very young, because their experience of the world is totally different to yours and mine growing up, where we could see everybody's face. Yeah. So I don't know. There's an element that is clinical and there's an element that is mental health, a little bit more wishy-washy in a sense that, not wishy-washy, but I think psychiatrists will have a lot to say about it.
So
and maybe even if it's not now, in the future.
I think the element.
Oh my gosh, James, we have to cut this. We can't ever let a psychiatrist hear that I said wishy-washy. I didn't mean that at all. I didn't mean that for the record.
Oh no, I'm going to keep that on. We're going to put that on replay.
Thanks. That's my reputation. I didn't mean that.
But so this is my thing is, anecdotal or not, the number of people who are sneezing, coughing, all of that stuff, because people were wearing, even if they were wearing dirty blue masks that they were wearing all day long, and everyone knows that they only last for about 20 minutes, if that. But it just created a little bit of a barrier for the spread of a lot of, when we talk, we spit, and there's a lot of aerosols happen. So I think that clearly these things work. And I get what you're saying with the communication issues, and this is a big challenge. But I really feel like for our physical health moving forward, with so many other things going on, colds, flus, who knows what else is in the air, I think people were a lot healthier wearing masks. And if we had buildings that had decent airflow, maybe it wouldn't be such an issue. But we live in a lot of buildings that the airflow and the air quality is pretty poor. And because of that, having a mask on really does help, I think, with the spread of everything. Forget not even COVID, just colds and flus. So I'm a big advocate. Keep the masks on.
I know you are, and let's remind ourselves that
and
you
I'm
do
a communication professor, so I get the lack of communication that happens.
You, James, are a communication professor who also has a touch of OCD. So let's remind ourselves that you are the man that cleans his seats on the train or on the aeroplane before he sits down.
Almost a whole bottle.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it also means that your viewpoint on it will also be ever so slightly more extreme than other people. And I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm absolutely not. And gosh, I would be crucified as a healthcare professional if I said we should stop the masks. In fact, the CDC are encouraging people to start wearing masks in public places again because we're now having an outbreak of monkeypox.
Yeah.
And, generally, although they say in many countries that you don't need to wear a mask, it's still encouraged that you should wear a mask. So we know that the masks are there for a reason. We know that the masks are helpful to a degree stopping spread of infection. However, coughs and colds and, flu-y type symptoms are something that come and go regularly. In Dubai, you actually tend to get it year round. It doesn't tend to be as seasonal. And I think that's got something to do with the air conditioning that's here. But I would love to know the science behind how important it is to build your immune system. I find what's scary about COVID is that it's a bit of a Russian roulette. Some people will get horrendous symptoms. Other people would be completely asymptomatic. And that's what's scary about the spread.
And I know people, Jen, I'm going to interrupt you. I know a person who's had it 3 times. And I'm going, how is that possible? I know how it's possible. We'll talk about that in a second. But how is that possible? You can keep going now.
Well, I was just going to say, some people have been triple jabbed, whatever, and maybe they had Sinopharm and then they had Pfizer and then they had their booster jab and they've still gone on to get COVID. But with regards to coughs and colds, it's like when children go to the nursery and they're often bringing their children in. They're saying, oh, they've got another cough, they've got another cold, what can I do? And it's like, look, this is part of the process of building an immune system. And I wonder if we do impose masks so strongly going forward, and let's face it, none of us really know, will that actually end up having a detrimental effect long term to our immune system? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's I think quite a logical question that I'm sure immunologists in the world are looking into at the moment.
I think just the general, all of the hand sanitizer we've been using, a lot. I mean, of course we want a hand wash. And the thing I loved about masks is we didn't touch our faces as much. Now I see people without masks. They're touching their noses, they're touching their eyes, and the masks have gone. Hand sanitizer has become not as important to people anymore. Washing hands seems to have not be as important to people. Yeah, exactly. And I just wonder, just because you're not wearing a mask doesn't mean you stop doing all the other stuff. But like you're saying, how does that all play into our general immunity to things? And we need to get a cold every now and then so that you don't get a really bad cold. A little touch of flu doesn't hurt anyone. So then you build some immunity so you don't get a really bad flu down the road. But
James, I actually don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, but I do have a feeling
that's got to be horrible for you because people are coming to you and they want answers. Doctors know this stuff, and you're going, I don't know.
Well, I've told you this story many times, but I'll never forget the leading professor in immunology at the time used to be lecturer at our university. And he had many books. One of the books was the one that we studied because it was before the time of just getting everything from the internet. We'd go in the library and we'd actually pick up the book, or gosh, I spent a fortune on medical books in university because you had to buy them. Yeah. Because often the book that you needed was taken out already from the library. And his words were, make your children go and play in the SHIT. Those were his words, because that is the way that you build your immune system. You want them to be exposed to mud. You want them to be exposed to dirt. You don't want them to develop asthma in the future or other atopic type illnesses. And the only way to do that is by building a solid immune system. Now, whether his take on that has changed, I really don't know. But that's what I was taught. That's what I've been led to believe. It makes sense to me. And yeah, of course, now we've had a time without masks. And so what's happening? As soon as we remove them, there's a surge.
Numbers are up again.
And where's the line? Why is it okay for me to see you at home without my mask, but not see you outside with it? Where's the line?
Yeah.